All right, welcome to today's Exchange Live session. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Abel Mirales. I'm one of the founders of the Jazz Exchange. You're seeing this either through Facebook or through our page at the Jazz Exchange, or you can also check this out on our YouTube channel. So, for those that are tuning in for the first time, the Jazz Exchange it's an organization based in the New York City area, and the Exchange Live sessions are this space that we started basically since the pandemics began, and in an effort to create community over the internet and and hopefully more than that, where we bring in amazing musicians and we share to you their music and and their new productions that they're coming out with, or even previous stuff. It's been such a wonderful time for us to actually be able to talk and get to know personally some of this amazing musicians that we have through the sessions, and to get to hear their music. Today we have a very special guest. He's an amazing trumpet player. He's an inspiration, and we're so honored that he decided he made some time in his schedule to come and talk to us for a bit. Before I do that, I'd like to talk to you guys about some of the programs that we have at the Jazz Exchange. I want to start first with letting you know all our social handle for social media, our website, and everything is right there on your screen. If you want to find out more about the different programs that we have, especially the interviews that we're conducting every week, please go to our website, go to our Facebook. As you can see, our Instagram is right there too. Is at the_jazz_exchange, or you could go to Facebook to at TheJazzExchange.org, or even our YouTube channel. YouTube channel is pretty interesting because we're posting all our past exchange live sessions there. So if you miss one of them live, you can go back and check it out, and really just we really get to the point of like, this is what this artist is about, and this is the music that they have for you. So also the next program I'd like to talk to you about, or the first program, is our education program. So as you all know, we always like to talk about this because we're so proud of it. In every single session that we do, we talk about this educational program, where we basically working with Jazz House kids based in Montclair, New Jersey, and also with Grupo Esmart from Juarez in Mexico. And they sponsor us a couple. They've actually, for the past 2 years, they were able to sponsor several kids to come all the way out here and spend a couple weeks and study with some of the teachers and the faculty Jazz House kids, and some of the best musicians around the world. So they get this amazing experience where they can also see and meet some of their peers that are really pushing with this music. So we're very happy that we're able to do that, and we want to continue to do that. So if you want to join the effort, reach out to us. Let us know that you want to help or sponsor one of these kids, and we would love to, help you with that as well. So far, we're so happy that even a couple of the students are going to college for jazz out here in New York. A couple students from El Paso, Texas, after going to the program, they decided to apply, and luckily they were accepted. Believe they're doing a lot of virtual stuff like we all doing nowadays. So that's one amazing program that we want to continue. So make sure to reach out to us if you want to join us. We also have still our Jazz Exchange Relief Fund, the Jazz Exchange Relief Fund that you can find in GoFundMe. Basically, we started this also since the pandemic, collecting money basically to be able to assist the musicians with a little bit of financial help, and also collaborating with them through our virtual jazz sessions, which are basically videos that we put together, and everybody records remotely from home and all that. So doing a lot of things, instead of just watching TV all day. we just stare at the computer all day making some work. So we're very happy that we've been able to distribute funds already for musicians. We are preparing to collaborate with some of them and distribute the funds that way and doing some productions. So if you want to help with that, please by all means. I believe right now GoFundMe is processing our campaign. It should be up in a couple days, but if you want to donate now, you could just go to TheJazzExchange.org and you'll see the donation button there for PayPal. And or you send shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy. Really quickly before I introduce my guest tonight, we had a couple weeks ago actually a secret show. So it was a virtual show. We're trying to see if we can do more of this secret shows. Basically, we had the amazing Jerome Jennings and his quintet. They came down and we actually got you to we introduced you to the National Jazz Museum in Harlem because that's what we were actually doing the live stream. It was a wonderful thing. Eventually we're gonna submit to our YouTube channel a couple of this edited videos so you can check out how it was, and so you don't miss the next secret show, man. Because it's like we mentioned before, this is a whole thing of getting to introduce yourself to some of the new artists and discover new venues and meet new people. So anyways, without further ado, I'd like to introduce this gentleman. Like I mentioned, he is an amazing musician. He is an amazing composer, educator, and a great inspiration for a lot of musicians that are trying to do a career or build a career in music. I had the opportunity to meet him a couple times because he teaches at William Patterson, and we crossed paths through the halls of the practice room. So I'm very happy to have him. All right, so how are you, Mr. Jeremy Pelt? Let me just unmute you. If you could just unmute yourself there on Zoom. There you go.
All right.
Hey, sir, how are you? Thanks so much for coming on the show and giving us a little bit of time from your busy schedule. How are you doing?
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm
Oops.
doing great.
Sorry, Siri's like trying to take over.
Siri loves me.
Siri's trying to make the interview. How are you
Yeah.
doing? How's your family? Everybody okay?
Everybody's fine, man. We're figuring out a way to be resilient through all this. And yeah, that's the best we could do.
That's right. You are where are you staying? Where you staying right now?
I live in Harlem.
Harlem. Oh, awesome.
hmm
Perfect. Was just there over there like a couple weeks ago, man, doing this live stream secret show from the museum. Have you ever been to the museum before?
Once or twice,
Okay,
yes.
cool. Yeah, beautiful place. So, as I was talking to you earlier, I think we had a brief chance to introduce myself when you initially started teaching at William Patterson. You're still teaching at William Patterson, right?
I am. We just finished our semester.
Okay. Man, how are things have changed for you as an educator, and being part of this institution like William Patterson? I wonder. I'm sure a lot of us that went to school and now maybe haven't, have been out for a while, trying to figure out how you guys dealing with this, continue the education and dealing with technology and all that.
Well, what's interesting about it is that there was a certain portion of, what I basically do is I teach trumpet
Mm-hmm.
lessons and I also have an ensemble. And so ever since I've started, I've been there since 2016. There's been gaps of time within a semester where I've been on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've told my students that we had to do Skype lessons. So remote learning in that regard is nothing new. So it wasn't like
Wow.
this like, oh man, now we have to switch
Right.
because that's how oftentimes was during just a regular semester pre-COVID. If I was in Europe for like 3 weeks, and I was like, all right, we had to do this, and that's what it's gonna be. Ensemble wise, I mean, I know that a few of the teachers that are up in age did things remotely.
Mm-hmm.
I tried on one or two occasions when I couldn't get to the campus to do things where I had the students bring in their computer and I was zooming in. Um, I mean, it's definitely not fun at all. But for the most, I tell you the truth. I mean, my ensemble room was big enough to where we could all be in there and be distanced.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up going in
Oh, that's
quite a
great.
bit during the semester. So I mean, I would say 80% of the semester I was there.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. So most of the students were actually attending school. Like
Oh,
it was like,
they were
oh,
there.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very awesome that you transition, like you said, since you had situations where you were on the road and you were teaching them via Skype, I guess, right? Because
Yeah,
before
Skype.
Zoom was the thing.
Yeah, I didn't know what Zoom was. I had to learn like everybody
I
else.
know that's
Yeah.
crazy. Mr. Pelt, tell us a little bit about you. You're originally from L.A. Is that correct?
Hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings and your transition to New York? And I'm sure in relationship to building a career as a jazz musician.
Uh, well, I was pretty much like any other anxious teenager in high school that discovered the music and decided to pursue it. I'm sure you were the same way when you were a teenager. I graduated and went to Berkeley.
Mm.
Virtually all my family is back in New York.
Oh, okay.
So it was written in the stars that I would wind up in New York.
Mm.
So after I graduated, I just moved to the city, and it was one of those. It's that was 1998, August of 1998, and in that I caught the tail end of a lot of things that were happening that were still kind of an old school way of development
Mm-hmm.
versus now, when I had to, talk to so many students that are, 20 years old
Mm-hmm.
and wondering how they're going to start working, which is
That's
a lot
right.
scarier than, especially with COVID, than it was when I first moved to town. Um, but, I moved to town, I got a day job,
Mm.
and but I started hitting the pavement, man.
Yeah.
I went to every session and made myself known.
That's right. Um, you went to all the way up to high school. You were in California. Do you have? Would you say that your musical roots started there? And do you remember any of your mentors in L.A.? And Uh, mm, what is it that made you? I mean, it's kind of an obvious question because we know that jazz is, is the mecca is here in New York. But I wonder what was your did you ever consider like building a career like this but in the West Coast or
No, at that time, and I don't know how many of your viewers are from LA or whatnot, but at that time, LA was dead. Now, well, in the last couple of years, I'd say maybe the last 10 years, maybe LA has kind of gone through this resurgence of live music
mm,
and jazz in particular, and that's great for the scene. But back then, we're talking about the late '80s, early '90s. Unless you were bringing it in from out of town,
mm,
even though a lot of the cats were living there, Cedar was there, Freddie was there, Herbie's still there, everybody
mm,
was there, but everybody's on the road. You know what I mean? So
right,
that those were special situations, whereas there wasn't much, and because it's so spread out.
mm,
I mean, because I hesitate to say that there wasn't much going on. I mean, imagine, first of all, I'm a teenager, so where could I really go without my mother?
That's right.
And I didn't have a driver's license
That's
either.
right.
So I'm sure, I mean, if you talk to somebody of age, if somebody's like a decade older than me and it's like, oh, well, such and such was happening, they might have a different story. But as far as I was concerned, yeah, I mean, the scene, nobody really talked about the LA scene that much. So it wasn't definitely in my thought that I was going to stay here.
Mm.
And, I also grew up in New York too,
Mm. I see.
earlier years. So, I mean, I wasn't really feeling like LA was going to be home. It was just where I happened to
Yeah.
live.
Okay. I see. That's very interesting.
But when you mention, mentors, I'd be remiss if I didn't. I mean, because my interest started in LA and it developed in
Mm.
LA, so I can't knock the teachers that I did have. One of which is no longer with us. His name is John Magruder. He was my high school teacher that got me into jazz,
Mm.
fully into jazz, because my mother always played it, but he was the one that I'd come to with many questions, and he'd answer all of them. Buddy Collette, who's a multi-reedist and very important on the scene in the 50s and 60s, was also somebody that was available to me at the time.
Mm.
But more so was my high school teacher.
That's very, yeah, man. That's very interesting to hear that like I mentioned before. You're such a strong musician, and your music you have up to how many albums, up to 10 albums, right, that you've been able to record. Is that correct?
Uh, Now I think it's
Oh,
17. I think we're at now.
17.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we're
got
there.
that. Forget that seven right there. 1 7.
No
That's
problem.
amazing. That's I mean, just to, like you said, like you mentioned before, like the whole thing of uh of the era. Like when you moved to New York, I find it very interesting that that when you were able to, like, you went to Berkeley and you gradually moved to the city to find work, and now that you yourself, you're a teacher and you're teaching some of this new generation guys that are that correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're into jazz, if you go to college for jazz, you get accepted, you pretty much really love this music and are into, like, obviously there's many gaps in trying to understand this music a lot, but it's pretty much like I want to do this for a living. But then the scene is not the same, and the work is probably not there, right? What can you tell us more about how you feel about this and the reactions that you gotten from some of the students that you teach?
Well, I think it's one of the things that you said that I'll kind of I'll add my 2 cents on is that there is an interest, a spark of interest with students that decide to go to more or less a conservatory for
Mm.
jazz. I think a lot happens within those 4 years, and they decide whether they really can do this.
Mm.
So, I mean, somebody in high school that's in the, whatever, the all city high school band or whatnot, it's a different thing because you're excited and it's still fun. And it should always be fun, but I mean, there's other factors into it. And then when you get into college and you're hit with a lot of work, you hit what you want to be hit with, but then all of a sudden it's a lot. Then you're like, oh, damn. So then you're backtracking. So, I mean, I've run into my fair share of students that was just had this epiphany, this realization that this isn't for them.
Right. I see. That's that. Yeah, I think I've seen that too. I think personally, I've had the opportunity of, like, just as soon as I started playing that, I had to make money. So I think
Hmm.
it was a good thing to realize what the live was, right? And related to what you just mentioned, maybe sometimes students don't realize what it is, right? That beyond the music, right? Like, how do we live?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had those conversations, and here's the thing. I could probably be accused of being a little bit too real with things, but in my teaching style. But a lot of times, I try to cut through all the bullshit
Mm.
of being like, oh, you could do anything you want. I mean,
Yeah.
because a lot of times people don't necessarily keep up their end of the bargain in terms of the work process of what it takes.
Mm.
And here's the interesting thing is it takes a lot of work to get out there and then struggle with the rest of us.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the part that you have to reconcile with, and that's the hard part is that you do all this work, you put in all this work, and then you're not getting your just reward
Right.
right away, because then you get out and it's a long path, and there's some and then you also perceive that some people, that may be a couple of years ahead of you, or you see the spoils that some people are getting, and you think, oh, maybe I can. I mean, it's inspiring to see, but you also perceive of their life as being different,
Mm.
in a huge way. It's like easy street, and sometimes it's not. Things aren't always what they seem.
Yeah. Man, I'm very interested. I'm always like talking to some of my friends about this topic, and it's such a great opportunity to hear your feedback as somebody that has a strong career in the jazz industry, and then also you're a teacher, and to see those perspectives. Before we keep going on this, or going further with this, I love to share one of the songs that you prepared for us. This is Love is Simple, and it's from your latest album. Is that correct? From
Mm-hmm.
The Art of Intimacy, Volume 1. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we have George Cables on it, and
Mm-hmm.
and Peter Washington. Who else is in the album?
You
That's
named
it.
it.
There
That's
you
it.
go. Let's is it cool if we just share people with this tune real quick?
I would hope
Oh,
that you would.
all right. Sounds good then. So this is Love is Simple. Everybody, please, we're sharing on the comments the links where you could get this. This is on High Note, and is this one of your compositions?
Yeah, it's my only original composition on the record.
Beautiful. So hope you guys enjoy. This is Love is Simple. Yeah, man, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that song with us. That's a very interesting sound of just two masters of the music, you know, of piano and bass and the sound of the trumpet. I really love your sound, and I'm sure you know uh,
Thank you.
yeah, I wasn't really I was like I was checking out some of the tracks, but it's always beautiful to just come in and listen tell us a little bit about this composition that so this is the only composition in the album, right?
That I wrote, yeah, yeah. Well, besides the blues, which was just all improvised
Mm,
anyhow.
mm,
Um, I don't, it was something that I wrote last summer, maybe,
mm,
and it was just simply something that I heard in my head.
mm.
But initially, when I wrote it, it was a little bit overwrought, and thankfully, I had the the wisdom to know how to just cut some of the things out because I was going to go into a bar of three and then do this and then do that, and I was like, man, this don't make no sense. Let me just do this 8 bars, and that's what it was.
Oh, beautiful music, man. Like I said, you know, I'm a fan for
Thank you.
sure. And just to continue our conversation, especially just to touch on one of the topics that we're very curious is you having building this touring career, as we as anybody that knows a little bit about entertainment, you know, especially nowadays, maintaining a touring career, and then on top of that, being an educator, it's not an easy thing for sure. Can you tell us about like how is it? You mentioned before about like getting into the scene, really hitting the pavement, and going to jam sessions and meeting people. Uh, can you tell us about that process and how it started to, you know, go into like, okay, now I got my band, and now obviously this took a lot of work, right?
It did, but at the time, I think one of the important things to point out is that it wasn't a calculated effort in the sense that I said, okay, I'm going to do this for a year and then I'm going to stop this and I'm going to go over here and then do this and do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was what I clearly had in my mind when I first moved to town was that I wanted to play with as many cats as
Mm,
possible, but the right type of cats. And what do I mean by the right type of cats? I mean the the cats that have status and are visible and that have a record to where I could learn from them, and I did.
mm,
So that includes Ralph Peterson, that
mm.
includes Lewis Nash, that includes Lewis Hayes.
Lewis
Then I
Hayes.
wanted to start to play. I wanted to play with as many of the old cats that were left,
Mm,
man. Lewis was gracious enough to have me in his band after Vincent Herring introduced
mm,
me. I did the Mingus band for a number of years. I recorded with them. I recorded with, so it was just really kind of indoctrinating myself in the scene, and that's what I was really concerned with right there. I wasn't when I first, I've always had a leadership
mm,
mentality, so the fact that I was gonna end up there was something that was to me a foregone conclusion,
mm.
and it was something that I definitely aspired to do, but it wasn't something that I was I didn't move here and say I'm going to be a leader right away.
Right.
That wasn't even in my mind because I knew that the steps that you had to take to get there were that you had to be an apprentice,
Right.
in which I had no problem. I loved it. I
Mm.
loved being a sideman, and being in all these different groups. I was in no rush to do the leader thing yet, even though I knew it was coming and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But it wasn't something that I was like, okay, I'm only gonna do this sideman thing for, you know, this long and then I'm gonna go for it. I wanted to soak up as much knowledge as I could.
Right. So, yeah, I really like the way that you put it, of like you were in no rush to like skip any of this stuff that you could learn right as a side, man. I find it, you know, very helpful advice, you know. And sometimes I feel like, personally, maybe some of the people in my generations is it might be a little bit like, kind of blurry. Like, what are we supposed to do? Am I supposed to just put a band together now and just, but it's it's very valuable to hear advice like
Right.
that. That it's like, hey, we'll just go out and support and try to play with your with the people that have been doing this for a long time.
That and I should say this, the paradigm for all that has changed a lot, and this is what I mean by that. There used to be a time it existed, maybe even as late as 15 years ago, where I would get asked the questions like you just asked me, but even more so, like, well, how do I, what do I do when I move to New York? And your answer would be, well, you got to learn, you should learn some songs, and then you should, play with this. And there were people that were still around that would take you into their groups.
Mm,
Now, what's happened, and I think, I try to think about it in terms of what if I'm this 22-year-old or 21-year-old kid that's just moving to New York now, and forget about the pandemic, just say,
right.
just moving to New York now,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to start a career in which there are no, real senior cats that are left for you to
Right.
play with, like there was in the 80s when that generation with Wynton and Terrence and all these people were brand new. That doesn't exist anymore. It barely existed when I moved to town. And so I got the last of that, but now it definitely doesn't. So I think that the position that somebody in my generation is in, somebody certainly, before he died, God bless him, Roy Hargrove was in that generation where he
Mm-hmm.
was now taking on young talent. And so that's a mantle that, I out, take over. And so many of my people in my generation take over because we have, we're embedded with this knowledge that we did get from the people that sadly a 21-year-old is not going to be able to have because the person is dead.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or even if they're not dead, they just, it's hard to contact. So now I have that knowledge. So really the way I see it, quite frankly, is the young cats need to be coming up to us to get that
To
knowledge.
get that knowledge.
And so when you move to town and you finish your program or whatnot, you should move into town with that kind of determination. Like, let me see if I can play in this group and play in this group. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because even, it makes me think. Even when I was talking to people like Carl Allen,
Mm.
Carl Allen, they moved to town. They wanted to play with Freddie Hubbard and what he saw, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you think about the spread. Carl Allen, I'm using him because I remember his discussion with him that I had with him. Carl Allen
Mm-hmm.
was born in 1961, 62, around there.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, so he's about 20 years younger than a Freddie or Woody,
Mm-hmm.
right? So and so he moved to town wanting to play that music with them. you know. Now, obviously, I'm not putting myself like I'm Freddie Woody, but what I'm saying is that now we're in that position now to where another 20-year-old is moving to town, and I'm 20 years
That's right.
older, plus years older than that. So, and me and many other people in my generation and the generation above are now in that position to where we're left to hold and hold the mantle and have people join us so that we can go ahead and inculcate and educate the 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 scores of musicians that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about young musicians coming up, I don't blame them for wanting to have something to, start their own thing. because the opportunities are not as
It's
vast
best.
as
Yeah.
they were.
That's true. That's the reality. But I really love the way that you really bring out this very essence of this music of like, if you really want to learn this music, yeah. Nowadays we have schools where you could go get your degree, but like you talking about, you're referring to this part of your career of like really having the opportunity to learn a lot by playing with people that have been doing this. That unfortunately you don't get that in college degree, right? Like,
Hmm.
and
No.
and think about, I mean, you think about other genres of music, and it's that's also like such a beautiful thing, if you want to say, of this. Hey, let me pass this on, and the only way to do that is, and then having, I guess, now that you're mentioning you yourself as well, I'm here, this is what I've learned, and I've had the opportunity to play and learn from other um, jazz heroes. Now I can call some other people, younger people, into my band, and if can you tell us about that, because you've done that, you actually have a band with younger musicians, right? Is that was it? Can you explain to us? Was it merely my decisions? I really want to pass on this. I'm gonna go out and find out some young musicians. I'm sure it's also mixed things, right? Like just falling in love with somebody's playing and stuff like that, right?
Right. Well, I think that so the first band that well, not the first, but like let's say the most substantial band, the first substantial band, I'll say, that I had was a band, um, my first Jeremy Pelt quintet, and that had J.D. Allen, and that had Danny
JD.
Grissett, and that had Dwayne Burno, who's no longer with us, and that had Gerald Cleaver. Now, the one thing that band had was that everybody in that band was older than me. You know,
Oh.
um, uh, we had a great mutual respect, and we had great times on the road. One of the things that kind of irks me is that it didn't get as much press as I wish that we would have. We put out 4 records
Mm-hmm.
in succession, but it was a hell of a band, and we did do quite a bit of touring. Now, after that band, but even during that band, I had another kind of electric thing that was brewing under that, and I did have younger cats, but I didn't necessarily um, like farm them, like go out like, no, I need somebody young. Where's where the young people at? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right. Okay.
But they were just there. I mean, I had a band even before the quintet called Creation, and that was like a cult kind of underground hit in New York, like around 2000,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And that band had a very young Tommy Crane,
Mm.
Warren Wolf before he got
Warren
all,
Wolf.
turned into Mr. Atlas,
Yeah,
and
right.
I mean, Warren's always been a bad cat, and
Did you meet him
Myron Walter.
in? Because he also went to Berkeley, right? But
He did. He came to I was in my last year. My last year was his first year at Berkeley.
oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
But so I had that band, and that was a very special band and had a different kind of sound to it. And it was a mixture of cats that were older. Myron was in that band, Myron Walden,
Myron Walden,
and Walt and Mike Marino,
Mike
who's
Moreno.
younger.
Wow.
Yeah, Mike is younger. Tommy's younger. Derek Nevergelt. We went to school together. He's a bass player. He's a year older than me. Um, so that was the band that I had. So it was a mix. So I never really set out to be like, okay, I want this band to just be full of
Young cats,
cats that
right,
are younger than
right,
me.
right.
But it just happens that way. And the more people that reach out that I hear that I feel like could add something to it. I mean, sooner or later, here's another thing. Here's where it's really at. Sooner or later, you're gonna be the oldest person in the
Sooner or
band.
later, right? Yeah.
I spent 20 years, and I still occasionally will be the youngest person on the bandstand,
Mm-hmm.
but I spent a long time being the youngest person on the
Right.
bandstand. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? And that's, I mean, this is not a complaint. It's neither here nor there. It's just what it is. So now, when I get cats, that are interested in playing with me, and I'm interested in having, it's just a coincidence
Mm-hmm.
that they're all younger than me.
That's very,
You
very,
know what I
very,
mean?
yeah, very interesting. It reminds me of uh, the late Mr. Wallace Rooney with his band
Hmm.
that sadly we lost recently. Such an amazing person. I got to meet him a couple times, and his music so beautiful.
Hmm.
But like very young band. I bet it was a blessing for them to just like play with
Oh,
it and
absolutely,
tour and
absolutely.
stuff. Hey,
Right.
before we continue, I'd like to show them another tune of that you prepared for us. This is from this is Rodin Suite and
Hmm. Rodin. Yeah.
Rodin, and this is from your album is just the artist, right? Is that what it's
So yeah, the name
Jeremy
of that
Pelt,
record is Jeremy Pelt, the artist,
artist? Yeah.
and on that record there was a suite that I wrote. I was commissioned to write by Font, the Festival of New Trumpet Music Organization, and it was I chose as the subject of the suite the sculptures of the French sculpturist Auguste Rodin.
August Rodin. Okay, that's where it's coming from. So what we're listening to the first movement of the suite. Is that correct?
Okay, so that was the first thing that you played before I
Oh,
came on here, though.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. I have it as part one. Yes, this is
yeah.
Rodin Suite Part One. So hope you guys enjoy it. Like I mentioned, go. We're sharing your contact information. We're sharing your website. Go out there and buy this music. Buy the new album. Really get to know this music. That's why we presented this music to you guys. Make sure to get in touch with Mr. Jeremy Pelt. If maybe one day you want to play with them, you got to pay your dues for sure. All musicians out there. So
All
this
right.
is Rodin Suite. This is the first movement. I hope you guys enjoy it. checking it out. We have Mr. Jeremy Pelt tonight here for the ones tuning in now. We just listened to one of the tracks off of his album, Jeremy Pelt, the artist. Can you tell us, Mr. Pelt, about the people in this album? Oh, I have to. Yeah, sorry. There you go. So now you there you
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to. All right. Yeah, certainly I can do that. On the vibraphone, we have an up and coming star. Her name is Chain Lu. She's from
go. All
Taiwan.
right.
Victor Gould is on the
Ooh,
piano.
good to go.
Vicente Archer is on the bass, my
Nice.
longtime friend and colleague. We were in school together. That's Alan Mednard on
Mm.
drums. Percussionist Ismail Wignall. And then that's Alex Wentz on guitar. And
Mm.
Frank Lacrasto, who's been with me since 2001, plays some Fender Rhodes on it as
Mm.
well.
Okay, yeah, that yes, beautiful sound. Definitely a contrasting sound and band and and you know the writing and everything, right? So that's one of the things that I like. As soon as I listened to your music, especially this particular tracks, I was like, wow, that's the range is, on your writing and you really just picking your projects and everything. That's very amazing. Hey, I'd like to give some shout outs to some killing trumpet players that are listening to this interview. Mr. Jason Palmer is listening to this, and he's got a couple of questions for you. So might as
uh,
well I'll just read him. It's a little bit long, but
Jason, how you doing, Jason?
I hope he's
That's my buddy.
yeah. I hope we can have him one of these days over here. Love to pick
I'm
his
sure you
brain.
can. I'm sure he
Yeah.
loves it. I've known Jason since for a long time.
Yeah, he wants to know this. He says, "Could you go further into the idea that eventually you'll be the oldest person in the band? What causes that to happen? Is it a particular writing style, the style of writing leaning itself to a particular openness of mind that is related to age, or something else?"
I mean, it's not that deep. It's just that well, okay. Look at it like this. If there's any depth to that statement, it's that you tend to the reason why a lot of older band leaders tend to get younger cats is simply the availability and the eagerness to grow, to learn and grow,
Mm,
right? So, for instance, I could say, all right, I'm going to together this band. Let's say we're going to do that Rodin suite, and I say, all right, so here's going to be the band. It's going to be Stefan Harris, and then I'm gonna get you know, Brad Meldau on piano, and then I'm gonna
mm.
get let me see if I can get maybe Chick Corea to do something on Fender Rhodes, and then I'm gonna get Christian McBride on so all great musicians and all people that have played together and all people that will make the project sound great. But first of all, you're not gonna get them
Mm-hmm.
on the road.
That's right.
You could probably, if I had all types of money and a great planning way ahead of time, yeah, I can get them in the studio. But that's not. And let's say that they were at your disposal anyhow, cats of their caliber, on just a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have so many different projects that they're doing, and they're band leaders in their own right that they're not going to possibly be able to funnel all their energy into this project that is very
Mm.
special to me. And that's just life. So
Just
this
like
is not me. This is not me blaming them or blaming anybody that's of that age and being like, well, this person's just not going to do it. It's just life. If you got other things, and the same thing could be said for me. You know what I mean? If somebody's saying, "Yeah, I want to do this project and have pelts on it," but for an extended amount of time, it's probably not going to happen because I've got 10 million things that I want to do.
that's
You know,
right.
but if I'm putting together a band of people that are on the scene, that are eager to work, normally in that case, they're going to be younger cats. I mean, look, Chain Chain had this was her first record, and
Wow.
subsequently, I took her on her first trip to Europe.
On her first trip, yeah.
Last year was her first, like a bunch of firsts. The record came out. She not only did she go to Europe, she went to Europe twice in a year.
Nice.
We went to Japan. I mean, she'd been to Japan before, but I mean, we did two European tours. We did a tour of Japan. We did tours all up and down the Midwest, all up and that she'd never been to. So I mean, this is something, and Alan the same way. I mean, he'd been to Europe before, but I mean, just getting them busier with the aspect of touring,
Mm-hmm.
because see, that's a lost thing too. And when I'm talking
That's
about
right.
touring, it's not we're gonna go here for a week. My tours, pre-COVID were 3-week affairs, and it
Mm-hmm.
was boom, boom, boom. We're gonna go to this town
Work.
because that's what I'm used to.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, that's what I mean. So, you when you're faced with that, yeah, your pull gets to be a little bit younger,
Mm, right.
and so that's what I mean. So that's the only thing I mean by I'm the oldest person in the band.
Well, that's I think that's a pretty thorough answer for sure. We had another Taiwanese American that actually he's Taiwanese American that asked the question, Mister Peter Lin. He said,
Oh, Peter,
What
yes.
what was one of your first gigs in New York City when you moved over here?"
My first gig in New York, well, let me see. I'm trying to think if he means on a high visibility level or just
Or
first gig period. My first gig period might have been at Cleopatra's Needle.
Cleopatra's Needle.
Yeah, and that's when, I remember when I first moved to New York and we all went down. That was me, alto player named Julius Tolentino. We used to live together,
Oh,
and
Julius, nice.
the trombone player named Danny Kirkham. We lived together. Julius had the car, and we would drive to Cleopatra's Needle,
Mm,
and that's where we saw Philip Harper, and he was leading the session. Also, another trumpet player named Manny Duran was leading the session, and so we would go on those nights and sit in. And once they, heard me, Philip would be like, "Hey, man, I got to go on the road. Can you sub for me doing this get, running the session?" So that's what it was.
mm,
In terms of on a higher visibility, I tell you the truth, when the first gig that took me on the road when I first moved to town was a ska band
the ska
called the
band.
Scatterlights. And
Scatterlight.
not only was it a ska band, it was the king of ska bands because they were the ones that started ska.
Wow.
So it was Scatterlights, and then there was also the Mingus band. That was like the first high profile jazz gig I got.
Man. Well, there's your answer, Mister Lin. But man, it's really amazing to be able to like talk to somebody like you and really just I think it's very generous of you just to share some of this insight on how things happen for you and what you advise to new generations. As related to what you were mentioning of like younger cats and all that. Since the reality is that there's a lot of us that are trying to build a career. Do you have um, some kind of do you have advice for musicians in terms of like doing this in terms of like okay, I'm playing with when people and I live in the area, I make the commitment, I got a daytime job, but I want to transition into eventually playing more with more people or like even just having a band and touring. Uh, what would you be your advice for them?
Those are lots of different levels of tiers of advice.
That's right.
I'll say this. I'd say that the one thing that you want to be is you want to walk around with a positive vibe and an eagerness, but not over eager.
Mm,
Don't be too eager. You still got to be cool.
mm,
but you don't want to be, up in somebody's face all the time.
That's right.
So it's a thin line because you need to be on the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and the more you're seen, and then especially the more you're heard, then the more you're in the consideration.
Mm.
I know some people that just stay at home, and I'm like, well, how you think work? Just because people, even if they can play, you got to be out there playing
That's right.
and being on the scene as much as possible, and having a positive attitude,
Mm.
and doing all the things that we've all heard, showing up on time, being dressed the part, look the part,
Mm.
and
True.
then when you eventually get that ball rolling, the next thing is, for me, because I've thought about holding a seminar, and I still might do it
Mm. Oh, that's
at some
cool.
a point about the business. But I would say that younger cats and older cats, because I do know quite a few older cats that don't know the business too. So it's not just something that's exclusive to younger cats, but they all need to learn the business of music, and as it pertains to
Mm.
releasing records, as it pertains to touring, as it pertains to the difference between a manager and a touring and a booking agent, all these things. One of the things that I did when I was on the road as a sideman, of course, was I always was the quiet one that was looking around to see who the promoter was, right?
Mm.
And then I would get their information.
Right.
I just have a stack of cards from different promoters that was contracting the Mingus band, or they were contracting Lonnie Plastico's band or Ralph's band, and I would just get their information and stay in touch, just at a distance. So I'm not, I wasn't necessarily sending them like a weekly gazette of things that I was fucking doing. It was just, every once in a while if I had a record coming out,
Mm.
then I would send that, engage interest in terms of touring, because touring is a whole other monster, especially if you're trying to tour overseas.
Overseas.
And so there's a lot of things that you're going to want to know about that. But one of the things is, I highly recommend, and it's kind of like the old Gershwin song goes, "Nice work if you can get it," is really start touring with other people, and and when you're with other people, don't be such a nuisance in terms of trying to be up in everybody's business about
Mm.
business,
About this.
but just be around
Absorb.
and get
Right.
that information, and just absorb it and see how different things work. Because touring is an eye-opening experience.
Mm.
And the more you do it, the more you see what works and what doesn't work, and how things, you know, fall into place
Mm.
in terms of putting the tour together. And just have patience for it, and be have patience, and also be very focused on what you're doing, and you'll no doubt after a while learn how to be a band leader. I mean, for me, it took a long time,
Mm.
and it's something that I'm most proud of, because not everybody could do it the way that I do
Right.
it, which is everything myself. You know
That's
what I mean?
that's amazing. Yeah.
And that goes down from driving sometimes to booking all the flights, booking all the transportation. I do all that. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
That's yeah,
But that's something that's learned over a period of time.
man. I think you really touched on that really interesting part of this industry, right? That I feel personally that a lot of us lack. You know, like the knowledge of the business side. And on that note, Mr. Palmer is also asking a very interesting question regarding that. He was saying, could you please talk about the delicate balance of recording for a label? Man, he's making my work easy. He's really answering the right questions right now.
Yeah.
He's like, could you please talk about the delicate balance of recording for a label and the importance of owning your masters? He says, "Do you own as many of the masters of your work that you would like to at this point, or do you have deals that you're happy with?"
You know, I have a different way of thinking about things. First of all, I'll give you the short answer. The short answer is no. I don't own any of my
Mm.
masters. Um, when you get into what's interesting is that just a few hours ago, I was watching that Dave Chappelle thing that he did he did a show and it's on his Instagram about his contract with Comedy Central and how he
Oh,
basically told the audience don't watch it because they didn't pay him.
oh,
But
wow.
the thing is this, it's I'm a very logical person, and that's something that speaks to me, the logic of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, you look at your contract and you decide how much you're willing to give, right? Now, it is an important thing if you want it to be an important thing to own your masters. You know what I mean? I definitely understand that, and there will be a point in my career, advancing years, where I might find it more beneficial to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Certainly, when you're starting out, and I'm not talking directly to Jason because Jason's
Right.
got he's got many records. But when you're starting out as a recording artist, um, you're not in a position to really be dictating terms on a level of I want to own my
Right.
masters.
Bargain or whatever. You don't.
And this is the same kind of pitfall that happened to Dave Chappelle. You know what I
Mm, he
mean?
was young.
Where But yeah, he's young. He's expecting his first child, and
Mm,
it's like, okay, look, just show me the money.
that's
And
right.
that's also something that happened to Prince. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Because but now in those situations, which are completely different from mine, you know, you had to read that small print to where they basically say they own every part of you. Because one of the things that Dave Chappelle said in that special was that, you know what, I'm thinking about doing another Dave Chappelle show. Oh, wait a minute, I can't because Comedy Central basically
Oh,
owns that
wow.
title in perpetuity.
Jeez.
And so that is, he's still making his millions. Netflix paid
Right.
him, but you can't purposely go out there and say this is the new Dave Chappelle show. You can't do
You'd
it.
have to
That's
engage
another
with them
reason.
again into doing it through them.
And at that point it's not gonna happen. Same thing with Prince. He also said the reason why Prince called himself the artist was because first of all, once he split with I think it was Warner or whoever whatever label that was,
Mm-hmm.
he could no longer be Prince without paying them money. You know what I mean? So now he said, okay, I'm gonna be the artist, which was his 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 own sense of humor, because in the contract you're called the
The
artist.
artist, right?
You know, so
That's
it's
funny.
something, getting back to Jason's question, it's something about reading the fine print of the
Mm-hmm.
contract and being okay with giving a certain amount of yourself away to gain something. Because see, here's the thing. People, even in this era of digitizing everything, people, a lot of people as entertainers are under the impression that you can get everything that you want without giving something.
Right.
And I don't know an entertainer to this day, no matter how outspoken they were, everybody from Miles Davis to Prince, whoever you are, nobody has ever gotten put out a record or put out a movie or
Without.
whatever without giving a piece of their intellectual property.
Right. Yeah.
That's the price that you pay. And the thing and I mean, look at Taylor Swift.
Right. That's true.
She's thinking about redoing her whole catalog of because her first six records have just sold from Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun basically owned six of her records and sold those six records for $300 million. to somebody else, and she can't even buy it from these people because Scooter put in his contract, if she's gonna buy it, she can't say anything bad about him.
Wow.
So she, in her mind, she's like, well, maybe I'll go ahead and re-record these records and put a different spin. You know, it's a tireless pursuit, and this is something that we all fall prey to. So the thing to understand is that you're going to give up some kind of an equity
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as an artist. The idea is to leave with as much of your shirt on as possible, because as long as you're living and you're being creative, you could always create something new.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You see what I'm saying? And that's the way that I think. And I know that there's artists that'll agree with that. There's artists that don't agree with
Mm-hmm.
it. All I'm saying is the way that I see it. You know,
Right.
no, I don't own my masters, but there's, as long as I'm creative, there's an opportunity for me to get to a point to where I'm comfortable releasing something on my own accord, which is coming soon,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
because now anybody can release anything on any
That's right.
platform.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
For
So,
good or for bad.
so
For
for good or for bad, well, this is very true. But you know, that's the thing. You know, the record companies are here to finance it, and that's where you kind of get caught up in things, is because, you know, I don't necessarily have the capital to go out there and say, okay, I'm going to spend all this money, and that way I can just basically own it, and I can pay you independently of somebody else funding it.
right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I say, all right, okay, no problem. You want to go ahead? You know, High Note owns
The
the
masters.
masters of the Rodin suite. Okay, I still, but now the important thing is this: they own that master. I could still go and record the Rodin suite again and release it
That's
myself,
right. It'd be
just
your
different
master.
solos, and it'll still be mine.
Yeah.
And they don't own the publishing. I own all the publishing. So the most important thing is that you retain your publishing. Don't give your publishing away.
Yeah. That's true.
That's the most important thing. The masters, you know, I'm not gonna sit over here and fight about that.
Man, I feel like we gotta collect some signatures to get you to teach a business class of William Patterson or something. You know,
Yeah.
man, I'll sign up. I'll go back to school. You know, because I mean, just to have just to see the value on really getting the insight from somebody that's doing it, that's touring, that the ins and out. I mean, man, that's amazing. Man, I like to show the last song that you have for us before we wrap it up, because I know we could talk here all night. I'd love to pick your brain all night for sure. But just so that people get more acquainted with your album, we would like to show the next tune, which is "While You Are Gone," and it's back to that amazing band of Mr. George Cable and Peter Washington. So let's check it out, and then we can uh, exchange a couple thoughts on the tune and go from there. Okay. All right. So
Okay.
here it goes. This is "While You Are Gone," um, off of the latest album of Mr. Jeremy Pelt, "The Art of Intimacy, Volume One," featuring Mr. George Cables and Peter Washington. Hope you enjoy it. Wow, Mr. Jeremy Pelt on trumpet there, off of his latest album, The Art of Intimacy, Volume 1. Um, Sir, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Mr. Pelt, to have you on the show, to exchange with you some ideas, and even just having Mr. Jason Palmer asking some of these questions, and to all the listeners, we really, really want to thank you for listening every week. I know we get a lot of people to check out this interviews that maybe wish they could be on the live, but that's one of the cool things about the live. You get to ask a question. Your questions will be asked most likely, and yeah, want to thank you for this time. What is in the horizon for Mr. Jeremy Pelt and your band and your projects?
Well, number one, thanks for having me.
Mm,
It was a pleasure.
you're welcome.
Um, Number two, the my next release will be coming out in the beginning part of 2021.
Mm,
The name of it is Griot. This
Rio.
is very important.
Uh huh.
And just to explain what it is, I'm also working on a book that is somewhat akin to Art Taylor's Notes and Tones. It's a bunch of musician to musician interviews,
That's cool.
just about the parallels, because uh, I've interviewed several generations of musicians,
Yeah.
and so I've got over about 35 hours of interviews from
Wow.
35 different cats, and I decided to take about five or six of those sound bites from the interviews and write music to them.
Oh wow.
So that's what you're going to be hearing on
The new album.
the next CD, the new album that's coming out. So I'm excited for that,
That's really
and the
cool.
band is the same band that is from Jeremy Pelt, the artist.
Oh cool.
Re-recorded it live at Rudy Van Gelder's studio, much just like we recorded Art of Intimacy at Rudy Van Gelder's.
Oh nice.
I've got an extensive history with Rudy Van Gelder's studio,
Nice.
going back to when I did Men of Honor,
Later on.
and Talented Mr. Pelt, when actually Rudy engineered it himself.
Oh wow.
Um,
That's
but so
awesome.
yes, that's the that's on the horizon, and forging ahead.
Right.
Nobody knows where we're going to be um, next year in terms of the viability of touring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I am making plans,
Yeah.
just because that's how my mind always works in terms of thinking, 6 months to a year in advance. And so, with that said, we are planning to be overseas in spring, in April and May, um, with the quintet. So
That's awesome.
that's pretty much what's going on.
That's very very awesome. And can people pre-order some of this stuff or not just yet?
It's not available
Not
for
yet. Okay.
pre-order, not yet. I surmise that it would likely be available, if any time, probably during the towards the end of December, if not the very first weeks of January.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah. Some people are saying already that notes and tones is like some one of their favorite collection of interviews. So
I mean, I would hope that it's every musician's favorite. I mean, and this is kind of like it's definitely sparked the idea, and it's definitely a continuation of something that Art Taylor, had the foresight to do.
yeah. Well, Mr. Pelt, like I said, it's been an honor to talk to you, to ask you several questions, and really to share a little bit of time with you. Thank you for spending, man, over an hour and a half of just really just talking to us and answering some of our questions. We want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving, a safe one. We want to wish everyone that's listening and that check out this live stream afterwards to stay safe. We're going through rough times. We just from the Jazz Exchange, from me personally, my wife, Candace. We want to wish all a happy Thanksgiving, and you hopefully that we can all stay safe and still get in touch with people. Maybe it's gonna have to be virtually this time. I don't know. Just make sure to do the best to stay safe, and I hope to see you next week, same time, Wednesday, same place, the Jazz Exchange and YouTube channel on Facebook, and we'll have a very nice surprise for you all for next week's interview. Mr. Pelt, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it,
Thanks again.
and hopefully I'll get to listen to the band next year and get the new album and everything. All right.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
man.
Thanksgiving. Take care.